Choice, your creative superpower. We have the power to manifest as we dedicate attention to our thoughts, but often miss opportunity to achieve the greatest good. Your superpower is waiting to be unleashed to unlock a fuller, more rewarding world for all. Join us every Thursday at noon Mountain Time for Choice, your creative superpower with Zoe Muro. And now, here's Zoe.
Hello, folks. Welcome to the New Thought Media Network. My name is Zoe Muro. I am a practitioner and a coach here on the New Thought Media Network. As always, it is my honor to welcome you to Choice Your Creative Superpower. We come to you each week at 11 a.m. Pacific Time and 12 noon Mountain Time from Oakland, California. We are here to explore how you can wield your superpower for the greatest good as you create your life experience. If you're coming back, it's good to have you here again. If this is your first time, well, welcome to the show. As I said, I'm a religious science practitioner with the New Thought Media Network. I'm also a transformational coach. My mission as a coach and my ministry as a practitioner is to help people live their lives to the fullest. So, today's episode is episode 40. And we're going to be exploring the relationship between choice and leadership. If ever there were a skill that I'd like to see studied, practiced, and nurtured, high on my list, it's leadership. Most definitely. Have you ever heard the phrase, leaders are born, not made? Well, this comes out of something called the leadership trait theory. It was championed by a gentleman named Sir Francis Galton in the 1800s. And he believed that leadership qualities such as courage and wisdom were genetic characteristics of a family, passed on from family member to family member from generation to generation. The trait theory of leadership made the assumption that distinctive physical and psychological characteristics, such as height, attractiveness, intelligence, self-reliance, and creativity, all of these could account for leadership effectiveness. Now, with that perspective, I can understand what his thought process was, but while I can understand it, I absolutely disagree with it. I've studied the ideas of natural selection enough to know that, yes, we humans most certainly are hardwired, if you will, to equate certain physical traits with desirability. And that desirability was built into us to promote choosing the best mate, continuance of the species. But we're talking about something that goes far beyond that primal initiative. Although these days, considering the importance of leadership in our world, maybe we are still talking about continuance of the species, but certainly not based on whether or not someone is attractive. Oh, no. You know, when you consider that we might choose to see someone who's classically striking in some way as being less desirable than another person who actually exhibits a kind and loving disposition. Well, so too does leadership depend on far more than physical or even these so-called inborn traits. You know, the fact of the matter is, if you were to search for the phrase online about leaders being born, not made, you'd actually be far more likely to find the exact opposite being espoused instead, that leaders are indeed made, not born. Now, we can look at history. We can certainly see that there were monarchies, and simply being born into a particular lineage would make you a leader. prince becomes a king upon his father's death, for example. Or we can see how powerful, influential individuals ensured their progeny would have leadership positions through the expediency of their wealth and influence. And still others, well, they ride the family coattails. Well, Grandpa Henry was mayor of Henrysville, and then Henry Jr. became mayor, and then Henry III became mayor. Born, not necessarily made leaders. Wow. Now, we also use the phrase that someone is a born leader, meaning that they exhibit the traits and qualities that inspire others to follow them. Now, we know enough that it's easy for us to have overlooked what happened in that person's life that brought about those traits and skills. Let's put aside the artificial ways that someone becomes a leader. By artificial, I mean the idea that there was nothing that they needed to do to assume that role, whether through being royalty or as a result of nepotism or influence peddling, whatever it might be. I want to focus on scenarios where choice is truly involved. Choice in becoming a leader, in choosing a leader, in choosing the type of leader you wish to be. In fact, I want to look at the choices we make when we think of someone as a good leader. The choices we make to be a good leader, the choices we make which enable us to lead, the choices we make as a result of being in leadership. Now, how important are the choices that a leader makes? Well, consider that Moses and Gandhi, Hitler, Lincoln, Obama, Martin Luther King, Jr., and Sr. for that matter, Genghis Khan, they were all leaders. Consider the ways in which they influenced the world. Now, I'm not saying that all leaders have such a tremendous responsibility, but every leader has the opportunity to bring about something greater than what could be accomplished alone. Have you ever considered being in a position of leadership? Have you been a leader? Did you choose to be a leader? Or were you conscripted, so to speak? Or did it just seem to evolve that way? Personally, I've been in many leadership roles, and I would say that they came about because of all three of those scenarios. It probably wouldn't surprise you to know that the times that I chose to be in a leadership role tended to be more rewarding than the others. Not always, but typically. I think many, if not most people, when they consider choice and leadership, actually choose to leave it to someone else. There's so many factors that feed into that decision. Concerns about judgment from others and from oneself, fear of failure, perhaps a lack of ambition, perhaps preconceived notions of what those in power are like. That last one's really important, and I want to address it more fully. A number of years ago, I was working with an organization that supported adult survivors of child abuse. I trained to become what was essentially a group leader in that organization, and then I went on to train others myself. It was extremely difficult finding people within the organization who would accept the role as a leader because they equated leadership with control and control with dominance and dominance with abuse. This thinking then brought these people to believe that leaders were in some way more likely to be abusers and that they could not accept that. It's terribly flawed logic. And it actually comes from a place of fear. not from a place of discernment. We see a very similar type of flawed logic playing out in the corporate world as well. There are people that would make fantastic supervisors and managers, but they shy away from the roles because they feel that they care so much about people that they wouldn't be good at making the hard decisions when work and personal life bump into one another, or crash heavily into one another at times. Of course, someone who has a sharp mind and a good heart would be a far more effective leader than someone with one but not the other. So while the choice to be a leader might precede all other choices, the next choice could be, or maybe it should be, choosing a leadership style. Okay. Before I get into that, I want to see what we have going on over here. Oh, hello, Shay. Good to see you. And hello. Now, if you're watching from Geneva, then that has to be Fiona. Now, that's an interesting way to put it, Shay, that you were born to be a leader and you're evolving as well. Skills are learned and given by spirit. I agree most heartily. To a certain extent, when we consider who and whose we are all born to be leaders. Okay. Now, let's see. Where were we? Oh, yeah. I wanted to talk about leadership style. So, first and foremost, among the factors that can determine the leadership style is, of course, yourself. What your own values and beliefs are, what you see as appropriate and inappropriate, how comfortable you are being a leader in the first place. And there's more. There's a lot more that goes into that. But my goal here is simply to note the importance of understanding and validating one's own perspective. Okay. Then, of course, there's the people you'd be leading. Choosing to explore their issues and circumstances as individuals, and if appropriate, as members of a team. Is there history that would affect how you lead or how they participate? It's always important to understand what's going on in someone's life. And, we never know the details, all of the details. So as a leader, it is imperative for us to know as much as we can. For example, are there cultural factors to consider? This is extremely important in today's world where we have multinational organizations. Now, many organizations do have a defined culture. So how one leads a group of salespeople, for example, in a high-powered competitive company would be quite different from being a leader for people who were, let's say, a group of research engineers in university. And quite a bit different again, leading neighborhood volunteers, doing a trash cleanup on a local trail. You can absolutely choose to simply be task-driven and lead from that perspective. But it's always important to bear in mind that to be a good leader, one needs people willing to follow you. So understanding what motivates people, understanding what excites them, understanding what it is that speaks to them, that resonates with them, makes a huge difference. We spoke in earlier talks about identity. And identity absolutely comes into play when we look at choices associated with leadership. If you think of yourself as a solitary individual who would rather work alone, leadership is going to present a real challenge for you. on the other hand, if you see yourself as a real people person, being able to ensure that tasks are completed in a timely fashion to a specific set of circumstances and requirements, well, that could present its own challenges as well. So, to put it simply, leader, know thyself. As much as it's important to understand the people you are leading, it's important to understand yourself, your own perspectives, your own needs, your own desires, your own history, your biases, etc., etc. So, we don't often use the word leader when we actually are talking about someone in a leadership position. For example, we talk about a president, a supervisor, a manager. All of those carry their own characteristics, those terms. A president presides, a supervisor supervises, a manager manages. But none of those necessarily makes a given individual a true leader. Leadership is about guiding, directing, being in charge, taking charge as needed. All of these things are true. But leadership is also about inspiring, supporting, engaging, and empowering. So whether you choose to be a leader or circumstances have thrust you into that role, you have the opportunity to choose what type of leader you wish to be. Do you choose to uphold a strict hierarchy, with each level reporting up to a higher level until they reach you as the leader? Now, while hierarchies are often viewed as undesirable, I mean, there are some people, you mention a hierarchy and they just go ballistic. But hierarchies do, at times, serve their purpose. When there's a need for very strict coordination and a task-specific focus, when these things are paramount, hierarchy can be very helpful. But it's important to not simply default to that as a structure. Do you choose to have a more collaborative approach to leadership? If you do, be prepared to provide significantly more than a team approach to decision making. Choosing collaborative leadership does not mean choosing, actually, let me try this again. It actually does mean choosing to share information at a much broader and deeper level. It's not simply about asking for ideas and opinions, but it's about ensuring that these contributions are part of the decision-making process and then working alongside those that you lead. Collaborative leadership is not a way to avoid making hard decisions, but it is a way to ensure that decisions are made with as many relevant perspectives as possible. Now, Fiona has something interesting here that I want to point out. Now, I mentioned that I'm a practitioner, as is Fiona. She says a spiritual practitioner practices a daily practice to empower themselves and to effectively and sensitively lead and guide others. Thank you. Very well put. We are indeed leaders. And as I said, we are all leaders, whether we take that mantle or not. Now, I don't want to make this discussion about an exploration of leadership style. Rather, I wanted to make it clear that each opportunity to lead brings its own choice points. And the choices that you make will indeed have a tremendous impact on your success as a leader and the success of your organization, your team, whatever it might be. I believe that one of the most important choices you can make as a leader is to ensure that each member of your team, your organization, your group, whatever it is, has an opportunity to grow, to learn, to advance. Recognizing that no one is irreplaceable. And the success of the team does not depend on a single individual. Well, I can enable team members to choose to engage more fully, to appreciate a variety of perspectives and opinions, to take pride of ownership. If I'll use a couple of analogies. I don't often use sports analogies because they don't always resonate with people, but think of it this way. Think if there was one person on a team that everyone considered to be the most important person, and that person sustains an injury, then what? Does the team stop? Does it fold? Do they never win again? That would be foolish. All right. Any organization that has a key member, well, people get ill, people leave, people change their careers, they change their ideas, they change their minds. No one, but no one should ever be seen as being irreplaceable. We are all potential leaders. Now, having said that, I want to note that a leader needs to choose to accept that every team, regardless of how well it is chosen or how well it is led, is going to go through a very predictable pattern of growth. And growth, as we know, can sometimes be painful. Psychologist Bruce Tuckman came up with this memorable phrase to describe this. It's called forming, storming, norming, and performing. That's how he describes the evolution of a team. Forming, storming, norming, and performing. Now, it's important to recognize that teams don't necessarily follow this in a nice linear fashion. In fact, as factors change and evolve, a team can and often will revert to a previous stage. So forming makes perfect sense. You bring a team together. Anytime you bring in a new member to a team, you're reforming. Storming is not something to be avoided. Storming is a very important thing. It's where we get to understand how much we can push, how much we need to pull, what we need to understand about different perspectives and such. Having that information and having those discussions, and even arguments at times, they help us reach the next phase, which is norming. Once we get to that phase, now we can actually proceed and grow as a team and get to performing. As you would imagine, I mentioned that anytime you bring in a new member to a team, it changes things because we have to, in essence, reform. Well, that also means you're probably going to go into storming again, which means you'll then go back into norming, et cetera. And, at any given time, you can go back and forth among these stages. Definitely not linear. So a leader needs to choose. Well, let me be a little more realistic. A leader gets to choose how open and responsive they want to be. When we spoke about relationships, it's way back in, let me see, episodes 8 and 9. Relationships was a big topic. We spoke about that last year. We noted that what makes relationships complicated, we're dealing with people. People are unpredictable. They have good days. They have challenging days. They have circumstances and conditions that bring about every imaginable response. Whether you're a member of a team or the leader of a team, you're a person. All right. So we have a lot going on. As a leader, you get to choose to be human, to be real. And that is a choice I hope all leaders will make. Whether you're leading a corporate task force, or you're leading an ecological tour, or a group of ministers, choosing to be real, to be true to yourself, and to allow others to do the same. That makes all the difference in the world. I would be remiss if I didn't address one more choice regarding leadership. We choose leaders throughout our lives, for our teams, our communities, our organizations, the political office holders that we elect. When you choose a leader, choose to be aware, to be informed, to ensure to the best of your abilities that those you choose uphold all that is truly for the greatest good of all. Strive to eliminate bias from your thoughts. And most importantly, never let fear subjugate your choice. You know, I post each day or each week a little reminder on Facebook that I'm going to be doing these talks. And I got a notice today from Facebook saying, hey, you're violating our practices. And all I did was say that I'm going to be doing a talk on leadership. That's it. That's all it said. They got worried. Well, yeah, I think it only points out how important leadership is, how important it is that we choose well as leaders, choose well those that we want as our leaders. Well, that's really about all that I wanted to get into for today, folks. I would love to hear your ideas about choice and leadership. So I encourage you to email me at zodimiro@gmail.com. Let me put that up. There we go. As always, whatever you share with me is always in complete confidence. And I always invite you to give me ideas for more topics relating to choice. We've been doing this for 40 episodes, 40 original episodes, not counting any of the rebroadcasts. And there's just so many possibilities for talking about choice. So anything that you see as a possibility, by all means, let me know. Be very interested in hearing that. And I would always invite people who would like to come onto the show to discuss choice. Let me know. Send me an email. Let's talk about it. I want to thank you for spending this time with me this week. But I also want to encourage you to go to ntmedia.org. I want you to see what we have to offer. There's so much there. We have meditation, and we have music, and we have discussions, and we have this magnificent group of practitioners and ministers who provide all of this incredible insight into new thought and into life. For example, today at 12 noon Pacific time, that's 1 p.m. Mountain time, I'll invite you to check out Finding the Joy in the Journey with the absolutely brilliant Reverend Gina Calvario-Krupka. Her special guest today is Reverend Dr. Jerry Troyer. So understand that we here at the New Thought Media Network want to make this a world that works for everyone. If you have the opportunity to do so, go to ntmedia.org/donate, because it does take treasure to spread this word as widely as we possibly can. I look forward to seeing you again next week. I'm so glad that you will be reflecting on this. This is really what this is all about, folks. It's not about my giving you answers. It's not about my giving you the definition and the word about any of these topics. It's about invoking and evoking and provoking ideas and thoughts. So important. You're very welcome, Shay, and thank you. And wellness to you as well. So, once again, I will look forward to seeing you next week. By all means, choose well, choose wisely. Much love and many, many blessings. Namaste.
Choice, your creative superpower. We have the power to manifest as we dedicate attention to our thoughts, but often miss opportunity to achieve the greatest good. Your superpower is waiting to be unleashed to unlock a fuller, more rewarding world for all. Join us every Thursday at noon Mountain Time for Choice, your creative superpower with Muro.